Hey you guys, how's it going? Today I am so excited to share with you my recipe for gluten-free coconut cake. This is not just any cake, it has fresh coconut in it and it is to die for. I am a huge coconut fan. My dad is a huge coconut fan, but my mom and my husband can take it or leave it. I mean, they like it okay, but when I served this cake to them, they were like in awe of it, and both of them said it might be their new favorite cake ever. So if that's saying something, you have got to try this coconut cake because it might convert you if you're not much of a coconut person. So let's get into it and I'll show you how to make it. Okay, I'm starting by whisking together my dry ingredients. This is 2.5 cups or 400 grams of my all-purpose flour blend, gluten-free. And I'm adding to that a teaspoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to whisk this together and then set it aside for when I'm ready for it. This cake is a 9-inch round 3-layer cake. So let's get our pans ready. And I'm using my homemade cake goop or cake pan release, and this is just somebody else's recipe. I'll leave a link for it below that I substituted my own gluten-free all-purpose flour blend in. And it's essentially like having that baker's secret or whatever it is, that pan spray where it's like all in one. It's the grease and the flour all in one. And what I love about it is it just stores in the fridge really well. And you can also use it for really intricate pans like bundt pans. So I'll do this to all 3 of my cake pans and then set those aside. And I'll also get my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And meanwhile, I'm going to start whipping up some butter. And this is half a cup or 113 grams of butter that has been softened. And I'm adding to that a half a cup or 120 grams of vegetable oil. And the reason I'm using both butter and vegetable oil is the butter is for flavor, of course, and the vegetable oil helps make it light and moist. And I'm also adding to that 2 cups or 400 grams of granulated sugar. And of course, we'll add in a teaspoon, give or take, of vanilla extract. I'm using my homemade, of course. And then just about a 1/4 teaspoon, just a little bit of almond extract. Now this is what I really love in this cake. This is what makes this cake what makes this cake. There are a couple other things, but this is coconut emulsion, and I found this, I think, at my local Michael's. I've also seen it at Walmart, at Hobby Lobby, any like craft store, but you can also find it online, and I'll leave a link for that below. It is not like coconut extract. It's not as strong and artificial tasting. It's perfect for this cake. So now we'll add in 4 large egg whites, 1 at a time. These are at room temperature. And then just let it go for another 10 seconds or so after adding each one. Just long enough to get it incorporated. This is essentially a gluten-free white cake with the coconut added to it. So if you're looking for a white cake recipe, you can certainly use this without the coconut, and you can pair it with anything you want. And I'm also adding to that 1 cup or 240 grams of sour cream, which is also at room temperature. That makes it nice and soft, moist, perfect. This cake is so good, you guys. Now I'm going to alternate between my dry ingredients that I whisked up earlier and 1 1/4 cups or 300 grams of full fat coconut milk. And that's the coconut milk from a can. So make sure you shake it up real well before you pour it out. And I always begin and end with the dry ingredients. And once all the dry are in there, let it go for another 30 seconds or so just to make sure it's well combined and all of those dry ingredients are completely mixed through. This is perfect. This is the consistency you want. It's such a light and moist cake. It is unbelievable, you guys. So now I'm dividing it between my 3 pans that have been well greased and floured using my homemade pan release. And then I'm just going to take an offset spatula and smooth out the tops so they're nice and level. Each of these layers is not super thick when it's done baking, so it's not an overly overwhelming large cake. It's perfect. So we'll bake these, like I said, at 350 for about 20 to 25 minutes, or until a toothpick comes out clean or mostly clean. And we'll cool these in the pan for 10 minutes and then turn them out onto a wire rack to cool completely. So while these are cooling completely, we'll go ahead and make arguably the best part of this cake, at least to me, the coconut filling. And this uses fresh coconut. So there are these little packages. I'll leave a link for where you can find them of fresh organic coconut chunks. And you'll need 4 of those, as well as 14 ounces or 396 grams of sweetened shredded coconut that we add to it after the coconut chunks have been processed well enough. Just make sure you've got the consistency you're looking for, which is basically coarsely chopped. And then add that entire bag of sweetened shredded coconut. This just cuts down on the sweetness of the coconut and it offers that fresh coconut flavor. I absolutely love this combination. But you need to be careful that you don't over process it because it will turn to coconut butter if you go a little too far. Not that there's anything wrong with coconut butter because it is amazing, but you want it for other purposes here. So now I'm adding about a 1/4 cup or 60 ml of cream of coconut and just mix that through. That's the same thing you use for like pina coladas, the good stuff. And that's perfect. So now let's go on to the coconut buttercream. And this is also another great part. The whole thing is great. You're just going to love it. So we've got lots and lots of butter here. This is my go-to American buttercream. And this is 3 cups, which is 6 sticks or 680 grams of butter that's at room temperature, or mostly at room temperature. Mine was a little on the cool side. And then I'm adding to that a teaspoon of vanilla extract and some more of that coconut emulsion, about 1.5 teaspoons, as well as another 1/4 teaspoon of the almond extract, just a very small amount of the almond. And get that nice and whipped up until it's light and fluffy. And then we're going to add our powdered sugar in stages just so it doesn't go everywhere. And the powdered sugar in weight is exactly the same weight. So it's 680 grams or 6 cups of powdered sugar. This is more butter to powdered sugar ratio than a normal American buttercream. That's why everyone loves this recipe so much. It's not overly sweet, and it's just sweet enough with lots of butter that people just die over this frosting recipe. And normally I do use my paddle attachment for this. I find it works better than the whisk attachment, but my paddle attachment, both of them actually, were both in my dishwasher being washed at the moment I was doing this. So I had to go with the wire whisk. That's just fine too. So now I'm adding about a 1/4 cup, which is 60 ml of heavy cream. I don't normally add heavy cream to my buttercream, American buttercream, but I felt it really needed to loosen up just a little bit this time. So that's why I added it. You can add more, less, or none, depending on your consistency. So now we're going to put down our first cake round. I put a little bit of the frosting just as like a glue to keep this first round down, and it helps keep it on the plate instead of sliding all around. And now I'm adding the buttercream to the top. You can put as much or as little as you want. A hefty layer is about three-fourths of a cup or so, give or take. That's what I like to do anyway. I don't want it too thick, but I also want to taste it, that's for sure. Plus, we're going to be putting the filling on top of this, so that's why I'm making it slightly on the thinner layer side. And here's that wonderful coconut filling that is so yummy, you guys. I cannot stress enough how much the fresh coconut in this really makes this cake incredible. It's not overly sweet. It's got a nice texture, so it's not... A lot of people are put off by coconut for the texture with the long, like, strands of sweetened shredded coconut, and you can use all sweetened shredded coconut, but make sure at least if you're going to do that to process it so it's a little finer like this. It really makes a difference. But if you can find those coconut chunks, get them. I found mine at Walmart. They also have them at my local Lidl. I've seen them really all over. So if you can get them, they're already, off the actual coconut. You don't have to worry about, buying your own coconut and, trying to extract the coconut from it. So now I'm going around the sides of the cake, of course, and just filling that in with lots and lots of this coconut filling. It's a little messy, but you can scoop it up, put it back on there. Put a good amount on top. I like to serve this cake after it's been in the fridge for at least 1 to 2 hours, just so those flavors really meld together. But when you want to serve it, take it out about a half an hour before you want to serve it, just so it comes to a little softer consistency, because of all that butter in the buttercream is going to make it hard right off the bat. So make sure you let that soften a little bit for the best results. Of course, it is really good cold as well. We tried it cold too, and it was just as tasty. So if you're a coconut lover like me and my dad, or not so much like my mom and my husband, try to make this cake. Just try it once, and I bet you those non-coconut lovers will be converted. You've got soft and fluffy cake layers themselves, and then you've got that American buttercream that is just heavenly, not overly sweet. And then you have the most amazing, unique coconut filling and topping all around the cake that just is so full of fresh coconut flavor. I'm sure it's going to convert you if you're not much of a coconut fan. Enjoy!